All right, everyone, today we're hitting the trails with Mictuning's Q1 Rock Lights. Let's get into it.
All right, so here's the box straight from Mictuning. Let's get it open. All right, so let's see what's in the box. First thing out are some Mictune stickers. Always nice seeing the brand throw in a little swag. Then we have our Mictuning app instruction pamphlet. We have our user manual. And here it looks like we've got some nice decals for the 4Runner. These are the Q1 Max pods. They feel really solid. They're IP68 waterproof. They're sealed tight against dust and dirt. Each pod uses 24 RGB IC LED chips, putting out about 400 lumens. They throw light everywhere. You can order them in the 8, 12, or 16 pod kits. I've got the 8 pod kit here, but the system can actually handle up to 24 pods, 12 per side, using either series or parallel wiring. Underneath the pods, we've got the wiring harness and extensions. The 8 pod kit includes 4 9.8 foot extension cords, which makes it easy to reach each wheel well or even mount extra lights along the frame. The connectors are weather sealed and plug and play, so you won't have to be doing any cutting or splicing unless you're using some type of switch panel, which is what we'll talk about in the install. So here's the control module. This is the brains of the system. It hooks into the Mictuning mobile app with dual mode Bluetooth for a super steady connection. From there, you've got 76 preset lighting modes, 8 do-it-yourself options, plus the on and off control. The app also gives you up to 16 million color combinations. It's got 8 brightness levels that you can adjust. It'll even sync to music if you want. Finally, Mictuning includes a full set of mounting hardware, screws and rubber pads for angled surfaces, so you can secure the pods wherever you need them. All right, so that covers the unboxing. Let's move into the install. All right, guys, real quick before we do the install, I just want to do a quick run through of some of the parts that I'm going to be using today, as well as talk about the fitment of these Mictuning Rock Lights on my 4Runner. So the box that it came in, I've already kind of ran out some of these wires to check my fitment. I'm going to need some zip ties, my 10mm wrench. I've got a rotary bit set for my Dremel. This is the included hardware that came with the Rock Lights. So this is the setup that I'll be using on the 4Runner. So I ordered these brackets off of Amazon. They fit almost perfectly to the Rock Lights. However, I am going to have to file off or use the Dremel to kind of get some of the edge of the bracket pushed out a little bit, because you see it's not quite perfect. There needs to be a little bit more room in there before I can actually mount those securely. But we're going to be using these brackets and affixing them to the frame of the 4Runner. So there's gonna be minimal like drilling into the frame today. These are the brackets. I'll link them in the description below, but I think $20 for the full box of 10 right on Amazon. I'm gonna be using some self-tapping screws for the front lights. We'll show you that in just a minute. And then I have these guys that I picked up from Lowe's, your M8 125 by 25s. These will fit into the already existing holes in the frame, so I don't have to do some more drilling. Impact, Dremel, and then as I was doing the fitment for the truck, I actually realized that I didn't have enough wire length, so I reached out to Mictuning. They sent me some extra 9.8 foot cables, as well as 2 additional lights to make sure that the light is flooded evenly on the ground. I asked them for those and I got them back in 2 days. So awesome customer service. Really appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the install. All right, so I've gone ahead and removed the plastic trim piece under the hood. If you're curious on how to do this, there are 13 of these little button clips. You just push them in, pull them out, and then you can take this whole plastic trim piece right out of the 4Runner. So I've mounted the control module right here using an existing bolt that was already under the hood. So it gives me a nice clean spot to place this so it's out of the way and it doesn't cause any issues. I used my little $20 Amazon brackets to mount it in there. Turned out just fine. Now we're going to start wiring in the Rock Lights. So I've got 3 pieces off of this. I've got this, and then I've got the actual connector that's going to go into our wiring harness and everything that we're going to plug into the battery. And then we'll talk about using the switch panel versus using the button. All right, so now that I got all my brackets drilled out and I've got my screws ready to go in there, I'm going to go ahead and start figuring out my wiring. So when you're connecting these, you'll notice that you've got a side that's got a little 3 holes and you've got 3 pins, right? So this is going to be the same on all of these 10-foot section of cables, as well as the plugs that go into the light. One thing to note, that when you're plugging these in, you'll see that little like indentation right there at the top above the 2 holes. When you're putting these pieces together, you'll see the same little indentation inside the 3-pin. Make sure you're lining those up and you're putting them in nice and easy, and you're not twisting and pushing too hard, because you might accidentally break the connectors off. So I'm going to start by wiring one up. I'm going to wire this one along the front side of the truck truck and the inside of the engine bay, and then it's gonna drop down in here to the bottom, and we'll take a look at that. All right, so we can see I've got the wire in here. I've got it zip tied up pretty good. I think I'm gonna run it there. I'll clip this off in a little bit, but the wire is gonna run along this piece here, zip tied into here, and then I've got it tucked a little bit on this trim piece here, and then the wiring is gonna drop straight down through the truck to the ground where I'm going to install the first light. So let's get down here and take a look at that. All right, so now that we're under the truck, I'm gonna go ahead and show you the location for the first light. So I'm gonna be mounting my first light right here on this spot in the frame, right above this recovery point. So we'll put the bracket here, we'll get the light mounted out, and then we'll talk about some cable management up into here. First one installed. Danny, what do you think? Does it look good? Get the wiring tidied up, and then we'll take a look at how we're gonna route the wiring to the other light, which is gonna start along the passenger side of the body. All right, so this part might be a little bit difficult to see, but I've got the wires zip tied nice and neat, and I've used this little bracket that's right here. There's actually a loop through there that you can connect your wires to, so this makes a nice spot to tuck these wires up and out of the way. All right, so I've gone ahead and ran the next light. I've ran the wiring up, back from the light down here on the passenger side, up through the 4Runner. The cable is now tucked up under this trim piece. It's pretty easy to get it under. You can just pull this away from the 4Runner and tuck your wiring up there. So then the wire is gonna run along all the way to the back. We're gonna make sure that we don't leave it touching anything that it shouldn't be touching, right? So you can see right where the hood strut is. I've ran it around the back side of that, down into the 4Runner. I gotta cut that zip tie off there, but I've got it zip tied to that wiring harness. And then it's ran along this, right down into kind of the corner piece right there of the engine bay. Now we'll look at it from underneath. All right, so here's where the wire comes out at. And I have it tucked through the engine bay in that corner, right through the top where you see it feeding in. And then I have the wiring tucked, and I have it zip tied to the frame right there. Then we have our first rock light on the passenger side. So this was a pretty easy install. We just used the pre-existing holes in the frame that you would normally mount your sliders or side steps to actually get the bracket attached and set up. So this was pretty easy, pretty clean. Then I have the wire ran to the next one where I've done the same thing, except I had to get a little wonky with the zip ties to kind of keep that slack from dangling down. So rear passenger, this is the one where we're getting ready to transition to the lights in the back. So I've gone ahead and done the same thing where I've mounted it to the frame. I've tucked my wiring, I ran my wire along that, and then I've come down, and you can see the wiring is up against the frame and running towards the back of the 4Runner. All right, so I hope you guys really appreciate it. This is another really difficult angle to get at, but I'm gonna show you nonetheless. So you can see the wire is coming out of that triangular frame piece right there, right? So it's ran through there, it comes up, I have it tucked up behind the spare tire, I have it zip tied behind the spare tire, and the bundle's right there where I have it zip tied nice and out of the way so it's not hanging. This is where we mount the rock lights on the rear of the vehicle. So there was another factory bolt that was actually into the frame right here, so I just undid that. I have fixed our bracket with our light, and it was nice, clean, and easy. Now I have the pigtail to connect to the other side. I'm going to do the exact same process on the other side for the wiring, so nothing really different here. Use your bolt holes that come in the frame to install your brackets. Use the same location for your rear rock light on the other side, so it's right on the other side of this spare tire right here. There's a little bolt on this side. You can put your bracket right here and bolt it right in so you get your nice projection of light. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get the other side done. I've got the truck all wired up with the rock lights. All the wires are tucked away. We can't see anything. Looks nice and clean. So now we've got to add the finishing touches. So I've got two options here. I can go ahead and install this into my existing switch panel, or I can install it in the truck. So I think this time I'm actually gonna install these into the truck with the existing switch that came with the Mictuning Rock Lights. So let's look inside the truck real quick and I'll show you exactly where I'm looking at. So I'm gonna install the rock light switch right here. We have two options. I've got a dummy switch here. I've got a dummy switch down here. I think I'm going to use this one down here at the bottom. That way I can keep it separate from the buttons that are already up there and I don't accidentally push something. Let's go ahead and get it installed. All right, and there it is. Nice and easy. Just pop that piece down, take out the dummy switch, pop in the new switch. Let's see what they look like. Woo! It's not water down there, is it?
I have absolutely no idea.
All right, so we can see what's going on down here. We're just seeing a little bit of dew on the ground. I thought it was water, but it's just shadows.
The RGB lighting isn't really my thing, but the app does offer plenty of customization from brightness and colors to different presets and effects. It's great if you like that kind of setup, but I'll be mainly using mine on the trails and around the campsites.
All right, that's a wrap on the Mictuning Rock Lights. Overall, pretty solid performance on the trail, and I think they're gonna do really good at the camp. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. As always, like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.